I thought my ex was the worst mistake I'd ever made until I met his ex. I thought my ex, Elijah, had left me with the worst kind of heartbreak, the kind that makes you question your life choices while sipping lukewarm beer at a dive bar. I was minding my own business, scrolling through my phone, trying not to look pathetic, when I saw him, Cole, Elijah's ex, the one who somehow looked like he'd walked straight out of a magazine, leaned against the bar with that impossible smirk, and clearly had a PhD in sarcasm. My chest did this annoying flutter thing I'd promised myself I'd never feel again. He caught my stare, raised a brow, and muttered loud enough for me to hear. Wow, he really does leave chaos in his wake, huh? I blinked. He's talking about Elijah. Of course he is. My brain stuttered. I wanted to retort, but instead, I found myself grinning like a fool. Before I could stop myself, I slid onto the stool next to him. Yeah, I said, leaning in slightly. And somehow I thought surviving him alone was the worst part. Cole laughed. Low, teasing, dangerous. Guess misery really does love company. Cole and I locked eyes, both of us, no doubt, remembering what it used to be like. I thought about Elijah's laugh when he first noticed me at college, how he'd text sweet jokes at midnight, make me feel seen. But then, he started canceling plans, lying about work, always on his phone. Cole caught my gaze, a shadow flickering behind his sarcasm, like he was reliving it too. He fooled us both, I muttered, bitterness bleeding into my words. Cole shrugged, smile sharp. He was good at that. And then, it was like sparks had gone off somewhere between us. I could feel it in the brush of our arms when he reached for his drink, the way his green eyes flicked up to mine every time he smirked. Dangerous, magnetic, terrifying. Then he leaned closer, whispering in that perfect smirk-filled way. You know, teaming up against him could be fun. I've got ideas. I froze. Oh no, I think I want this. By the time Elijah's shadow appeared across the room, I realized something terrifyingly clear. Revenge had never sounded so tempting, and neither had the guy plotting it with me. A few days later, I slouched into my usual corner, pretending to scroll through memes while my phone buzzed like a ticking timer. Cole. Ready for chaos? I grinned. Perfect timing. I'd recruited my friend Jenna, the barista, for Operation Salt and Sass. She was brilliant, loyal, and thoroughly entertained by the idea of messing with Elijah. I sent her a quick text. Swap the sugar for salt. Make it subtle. He won't suspect a thing. Bonus. Dramatic facial expressions encouraged. Cole walked in a few moments later, leaning casually against the counter, glancing around like he was just passing through. I caught his eye and smirked. He raised an eyebrow in that "you're up to something" way that made my chest twitch. From my spot, I watched Elijah stir his coffee. Jenna had done her part perfectly. He took a sip and immediately grimaced, coughing, sputtering, looking betrayed by the universe itself. Cole chuckled softly, low and amused, catching my gaze briefly. That spark, distant but undeniable, made me grin. Safe, personal, yet electric. As we walked out separately, Cole called over his shoulder. Also, he's getting Hot Granny Monthly delivered next week. Thought you'd appreciate it. I laughed aloud, clutching my latte, nearly spilling it. Perfect chaos. Safe distance. Tiny shared victories. And yeah, I definitely wouldn't admit I was enjoying the little electric moments with Cole more than the revenge itself. 2 days later, Elijah strutted into the gym like he owned the place, water bottle in hand, head held high. Perfect. Absolute perfect target. Cole and I had arrived earlier under the guise of a casual workout, giving us plenty of time to prep. Dumbbells slightly misaligned, a few weight plates loosely stacked. Nothing dangerous, just enough to wobble suspiciously. Every cable pulley had a tiny twist we'd left, so the resistance would feel just off. We tucked ourselves behind the squat racks, pretending to stretch, pretending not to laugh, watching like predators. Cole adjusted his wrist straps and leaned slightly toward me. Not close, just enough that our shoulders nearly brushed. And I felt that stupid flutter again. Elijah strutted over to the bench press, pride radiating off him. He loaded the weights with confidence and immediately noticed the uneven stack beneath the bar. He paused, frowning, shaking his head like the gym was conspiring against him. We stifled giggles behind the racks. Every small wobble, every tiny slip he had to correct was chef's kiss chaotic perfection. When he moved to the dumbbells, things only got better. A 5-pound plate had been subtly swapped for a slightly heavier one. Another set slightly misaligned. He picked up the weights, did a curl, and grimaced. Small, frustrated mutters escaped his lips. Cole and I exchanged a glance across the gym. No words, just a tiny spark of satisfaction, a shared, unspoken chaos. Safe distance maintained, yet somehow personal, the thrill of watching him struggle, the adrenaline buzzing between us by the time Elijah finally noticed the cables and the odd stack of weights. Cole and I were already halfway out of the gym, shoulders pressed together for balance as we navigated the crowded exit. Every laugh, every glance we shared in that short walk out felt like a stolen little spark, chaotic and completely ours. 2 weeks later, Elijah had somehow decided that the local supermarket was his personal runway. He strutted down the produce aisle, inspecting apples like he was judging a high-stakes competition. Perfect. Cole and I were hiding behind a stack of cereal boxes, peeking out like we were secret agents on a mission. I nudged Cole, pointing at the perfectly aligned cans on the bottom shelf. With a barely audible smirk, he gave me a nod. In perfect sync, we leaned forward, subtly nudging cans and jars just enough so they teetered precariously. A jar of pickles wobbled ominously. A can of beans tipped slightly. Every tiny imbalance guaranteed chaos. Without anyone noticing we'd done it, Elijah reached for a can of beans, and naturally, it slipped from his grip, knocking over the pickles in an audible clatter. He jumped back, horrified, as jars rolled across the floor. People stared, murmuring. He cursed under his breath, clearly embarrassed. Cole and I stifled our laughter behind the cereal stacks, glancing at each other. His green eyes flicked to mine, a smirk tugging at his lips, and I felt that spark, the dangerous little flutter in my chest. Distance maintained, personal, electric. By the time the store manager came over to stabilize the mess, Cole had already accidentally dropped another stack of canned soup in Elijah's path. The man jumped again, muttering incoherently. I laughed quietly, shaking my head, heart racing. Chaos delivered, sparks shared, and Elijah? Completely oblivious. By the next week, I had the perfect setup. Elijah's Spotify playlist, about to get haunted. Thanks to a password we'd accidentally shared during our last movie night, Cole and I took turns cueing the most embarrassing songs we could find. Baby Shark, ASMR unicorns, medieval recorder covers, right in the middle of his favorite gym tracks. I texted Cole, "Did you add I'm Too Sexy on repeat again?" Cole, "Only after Barbie Girl 3 times, it's probably a crime. Should we feel bad?" Me, "Not even a little. We're partners in probably illegal chaos." We watched Elijah across the gym frown in confusion every time his headphones randomly blasted a meme song, Total Perfection. I laughed so hard I almost fell off my chair. Absolutely, this is way too addictive. Watching him losing it all from afar, chaos everywhere, sparks between us subtly crackling, I realized some revenge plans were just perfect, especially when you had the right partner in crime. 3 days later, I ducked into the dusty little library tucked behind Elijah's old apartment building, trying to act like I wasn't entirely thrilled that Cole had asked me to meet him here. The place smelled like old paper and coffee, perfect for chaos. Cole was already there, leaning lazily against a shelf, flipping through a book like he didn't even care that I was standing there, watching him. "You actually showed up," he said, smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. "Yeah, I'm not a coward," I muttered. Brushing past him to grab a book on the top shelf, my arm brushed his. Light, accidental, or maybe not. He didn't move away. Instead, his smirk grew, just slightly, like he knew exactly what I was thinking. We ended up crouched on the floor, trying to knock over a precarious stack of books I'd found for the prank we were planning. Every time our hands brushed, it sent this ridiculous electric tingle up my arm. My chest fluttered, my brain going, "Focus, Michael. It's revenge, not this." We whispered jokes about Elijah's predictable stupidity, laughing so quietly that people walking past didn't notice us. Cole's green eyes kept flicking to mine, glinting with amusement, teasing, and something else. Something I wasn't ready to name. At one point, he reached for a falling book at the exact moment I did. Our fingers collided. I swallowed hard, heart hammering, and he just looked at me, eyes sharp, lips twitching. "Careful, you might start enjoying this," he said. Voice low and teasing, I laughed nervously, trying to ignore the way my stomach jumped. "Yeah, right. Totally just about revenge." When we left, carrying the stack of books as evidence for our prank, I realized that the sparks between us weren't accidental, and it terrified me. A few days later, Cole and I had arranged a meeting on the apartment rooftop to plan our next prank. The city was painted gold by twilight, wind tangling our hair. The world felt smaller somehow, dangerous in the best way. "So, your plan for Elijah?" I asked, trying to focus on the papers in my hand. Cole leaned against the railing, pretending to casually survey the skyline, but he shifted closer under the pretense of looking at my notes. Our shoulders brushed once, tiny contact, but enough to make my chest tighten. I had to bite my lip to stop the stupid grin that wanted to spread across my face. "You know," he said, teasing, voice low, "if we're going to humiliate him properly, we might need creative measures." I snorted. "Creative measures, huh? Like what?" He smirked, lips twitching, eyes glinting in the fading light. "Oh, you'll see, and maybe I'll make sure you don't die of boredom before then." We laughed, leaning over the notes together, heads close but careful to maintain space. My fingers twitched, itching to brush against his, but I didn't. I couldn't. Distance was safe. Yet the teasing, the subtle proximity, it was electric. My thoughts betrayed me. I'm supposed to feel this or anything, right? He's hated X's ex. Cole's laugh echoed against the rooftop walls, warm and dangerous. I hated that it made me want more. About a month later, we arrived at a mutual friend's party, the place a chaotic mess of disco lights and drunken laughter. Cole and I crouched behind a couch, quietly whispering about Elijah's predictable behaviors, plotting small, subtle pranks that no one else would notice. And then, he appeared. Elijah, smug grin plastered on his face, thinking he owned the room. My stomach twisted. Cole stiffened slightly beside me. His jaw tightened. Our eyes met for just a moment, and I realized my chest was racing. Not from fear, but from something entirely different. Jealousy? Definitely. Elijah wandered dangerously close, oblivious. Cole whispered, "Should we ruin his night completely?" I swallowed hard, voice catching slightly. "Yes, but also..." I trailed off, because suddenly the thought of being close to Cole, even crouched behind the couch, was unbearable. Sparks crackled every time his hand brushed mine while shifting positions. Every time our shoulders collided under the pretense of hiding. We whispered sarcastic comments about Elijah, shared quiet laughter, and I realized how much I craved these moments. The subtle closeness, the shared chaos. Cole leaned just a bit closer, voice low. "Maybe this is more fun than I thought." My pulse spiked. Yeah, fun, I agreed. But it wasn't just fun anymore. Not with the way my stomach fluttered and my brain short-circuited every time he looked at me. By the time Elijah wandered off to flirt with some oblivious girl, I knew the truth. I didn't just want revenge. I didn't just want him to fail. I wanted Cole. All of him. A week later, we were alone in Elijah's old apartment, the aftermath of another failed prank war hanging thick in the air. I had shoved a stack of papers onto the table in frustration. Cole leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, smirk twisting into something sharper. Anger, amusement, desire all at once. "You think this is funny?" I snapped, but my voice wavered. Cole's eyes flickered. "Funny? I think you're finally realizing how much fun chaos can be when it's shared." I lunged at him, pretending to shove him, and he shoved back. But the shove wasn't forceful, just enough for us to stumble into each other. His hand caught my wrist, mine brushed his chest, and suddenly we were pressed together, chest to chest, heat radiating. "Stop!" I started, but my words died when his lips grazed mine in a teasing, dangerous way. "What? Too late?" he murmured, and suddenly the shove turned into a grab, our mouths colliding in a messy, chaotic kiss that tasted like adrenaline, laughter, and everything we'd been holding back. Hands tangled, bodies pressed, hearts hammering. No more pretending, no more distance, no more revenge. Just us, chaotic, messy, unstoppable. We pulled back for air, breathing hard, staring at each other like idiots. "You're impossible," I panted. "Not as impossible as you," he shot back, smirk returning, but the heat in his eyes didn't lie. A few days later, we were supposed to be enjoying a low-key brunch, nursing our throbbing heads and egos, but the universe had other plans. Someone, or maybe Cole or I, accidentally posted our latest revenge plan online. Elijah's name, the pranks, the notes, everything. Within minutes, our phones exploded. Notifications, tags, screenshots, memes. People we barely knew were commenting. The gossip spread like wildfire. Cole leaned over the table, scrolling furiously. Oh, well, that escalated quickly. I groaned, burying my face in my hands. This is humiliating. And yet, he smirked, eyes gleaming. Kind of exhilarating, right? I looked at him, torn between wanting to hit him and wanting to laugh, because despite the chaos, the embarrassment, the invasive eyes of social media, I didn't want to be anywhere else. We spent the rest of the day navigating the storm, apologizing, clarifying, dodging texts from mutual friends. Every glance between us carried a spark. Guilt, desire, chaos, all tangled together. By the evening, Cole and I were sitting on the rooftop again, city lights sprawling beneath us, exhausted, bruised, and still flushed from the confrontation and the public fallout. It got seriously ugly before sunset. Mutual friends started group texting, demanding to know if all the rumors were true. At the next party, Elijah cornered us by the kitchen, rage practically vibrating off him. He shoved his phone in my face, our meme war, screenshots, everything. "This is how you get over me? Mock me with him? Lie to everyone?" His voice shook, louder than any music in the room. "You think it's funny, making me a meme for half the city? You two were just waiting for this, weren't you?" The words hit harder than any prank. Cole's smirk faded. Nobody at the party even pretended not to listen. I swallowed, guilt knotting in my stomach. Honestly, we just needed something to laugh about after what you did." He cut me off. "What I did? This is worse, Michael." Cole finally stepped in, voice calm but deadly flat. "Elijah, you hurt both of us, lied to us, cheated on us. You made us both into punchlines before we even knew the punchline. So, no, we don't think we did you much wrong considering how much worse you actually deserve." Elijah glared, breathing hard, then looked between us, the mess we'd caused, the way Cole had stepped closer. The silence lasted forever. I could feel the party shift around us. Then Elijah shook his head and stormed out, barely saying another word. I exhaled shakily, feeling the bitter taste of regret, relief, and something like hope, all tangled up. A few weeks later, we were sprawled across Cole's apartment floor, surrounded by what had been a less than stellar attempt at a peaceful brunch. Pancake batter streaked the counter. The blender had tried to kill me, and Cole was still wearing flour in his hair like a badge of honor. He nudged me with a foot, a smirk lurking on his lips. You know, for two people who started out plotting chaos, we're shockingly bad at adult life. I snorted. Hey, at least we're consistently terrible together. I grinned, flicking a bit of batter at his arm. He rolled over, propping his chin on my chest. Deadpan. So this is it, huh? Our grand revenge arc ends with semi-cooked pancakes and hazardous coffee? Please, I said, feigning outrage. You love it, admit it. You're addicted to the drama. Cole let the smirk finally break into a grin. He nudged closer, green eyes warm for once. Only if I get to cause chaos with you. My heart was pounding, but I held his gaze. So, if we're not plotting against Elijah anymore, what do we do next? Set the toaster on fire? Break a world record for worst brunch? Or, he drawled, reaching for my hand and lacing our messy, batter-sticky fingers together. We could just be disasters together. Officially. I made a face. Are you trying to ask me out? Because your timing is atrocious. There's flour in places flour should never be. Cole grinned, brushing a streak off my cheek. What can I say? Romance born of chaos is on brand for us. He hesitated, then dropped his voice. I like you. Yeah, even after all this, I think I might be more than a little in love with you, which is definitely not what I had in mind when I set out to sabotage your ex. I grinned back, warmth flooding my chest. That's good, because you're impossible, messy, and annoying, and God help me, I think I love you too. Cole laughed, wild and unguarded, then pulled me down into a kiss. Flour, batter, and all. And in that moment, in the disaster we'd made, the chaos finally disappeared, leaving just us, messy and perfect and impossible not to love. A few months later. Morning sunlight slanted through the blinds, painting stripes across our chaotic apartment. A pile of laundry lay on the couch, a hoodie draped over the backrest, a half-eaten pizza box teetering on the coffee table. Somewhere, Cole's playlist was blasting a ridiculous 90s boy band hit. I stirred under the blanket, groaning, and immediately smelled coffee. Cole's coffee. Not just any coffee, but the kind he somehow made perfect every time, even if the rest of the apartment was a disaster. He was perched on the edge of the counter, smirking like he owned the world, holding a mug out for me. Morning, he said, voice teasing, that smirk tugging at the corners of his lips like he knew exactly how my morning mood worked. Morning, I muttered, dragging myself upright, hair sticking every which way, my blanket tangled around my legs, and I stumbled slightly. Cole's grin widened. Careful, he said, voice low, teasing. Don't trip over your own chaotic life. I rolled my eyes, but a smile tugged at my lips. He walked over, leaning close enough for me to smell his shampoo and feel the faint heat radiating off him. I made your coffee the way you like it, he said, voice softer now, almost intimate. And yes, I remembered the little dash of cinnamon you love. I reached for the mug and our fingers brushed. My chest did that stupid flutter again, just like the first day we met, except now it was familiar, addictive. I swatted his hand away jokingly, but I didn't pull back entirely. Cole leaned closer, whispering, You know, you look ridiculous when you just woke up, totally messy, and yet I can't stop looking at you. I snorted, shaking my head. You're impossible. And lucky, because I've completely fallen for it. He laughed, low and warm, and pulled me into a hug that was half teasing, half desperate, chaotic in the way only we could manage. I wrapped my arms around him, hugging back, and felt his chest pulse against mine. Everything about us was messy. Our apartment, our mornings, our love, but it fit perfectly. He pulled back just enough to look at me, eyes soft but smoldering. Worth every mess, he murmured. Every stolen touch, every chaotic moment. I grinned, leaning my forehead against his. Yeah, it really was. We stayed like that for a few minutes, the world outside disappearing. I could hear the faint hum of the playlist, the clink of mugs, the soft chaos of our apartment, and I realized this was ours, all of it. Messy, wild, chaotic, addictive. And I wouldn't trade a single second of it. The end. Would you keep plotting revenge with a hot partner in crime, or give in to the sparks? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.